Welcome back to the Ignite SAT Mastery course. Today we'll be covering Lesson 2 of Module 3, Punctuation Rules. Now, as a quick refresher, let's look at some of these punctuation rules questions. Now, these two questions have something very similar. It's the use of colons, semicolons, or commas separating separate words, and these exactly require punctuation rules that we'll be going over. Now, let's look at some of these important rules. The first one is appositives. Now, appositives is a clause that is not necessary for a sentence, but is inputted for extra information and is surrounded by either dashes, commas, in some cases, semicolons. Now, as you can see on the right, these are two examples. Marta, a talented acrylic painter, that's the appositive. Rabia, Natasha's younger sister, that's an appositive. As you can see, both of these bolded statements are helping introduce more information that isn't necessary but can be removed, thus the use of appositives. Next are coordinating conjunctions, and this is where I like to use the term fanboys, which is connecting two independent or dependent clauses with the words for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. And these words are going to be after a comma. The next we have are semicolons. And most often the SAT tests your knowledge of a semicolon literally by using it incorrectly. And you're going to see that very, very often. And the last are colons or dashes. And a basic explanation is introducing lists, providing the explanation. Again, we go back to joining two independent clauses, and these clauses are usually related to each other. In most cases, the SAT is going to test you on when to use periods, dashes, or colons. Now, let's try answering one of these questions. Let's look at this passage in the writing section and question 4. Now, what is question 4 asking? It's asking us from a transition from the word scientists and which punctuation is properly being used. So let's look at that sentence. Yogurt manufacturers, food scientists, and government officials are also working together to develop additional solutions for reusing whey. Now, a key indicator in figuring out which punctuation to use is figuring out what kind of phrase this is. And as we can see, this is a list, a parallel list. Yogurt manufacturers, food scientists, and government officials. So because of that fact, the punctuation needs to be consistent throughout that list. As we see, between manufacturers and food, there is one comma. So between scientists and there also needs to be one comma. Note, between the words and government, the basic writing conventions do not require a comma for the SAT. So therefore, the answer would be C, and that would be correct. Now that we've gone through a problem, how about you guys try? Alright, now that you guys have tried this question, let's take a look at it in more in depth. Now, what is this question asking? It's asking us to look at the it, then, therefore, farmers phrase. So let's read that entire sentence. Because consumers reap the nutritional benefits of Greek yogurt and support those who make and sell it, therefore, farmers and businesses should continue finding safe and effective methods of producing the food. Now, this first phrase is a dependent clause. Starting with the word because, it allows that phrase to be dependent on the next clause. Therefore, using the word therefore is not allowed in that second clause, since this clause needs to be independent. In that case, the only thing separating the it, comma, and farmers has to be nothing. So, B must be the correct answer. Now, let's look at some tips when approaching this writing punctuation section. The first one to look at is checking. You need to check which punctuations are being tested. And usually a difference in a comma, semicolon, or even a period and a dash is going to be an indicator of what you need to look for. Mostly it's going to be between an independent and a dependent clause. Next is going to be underlining or mentally underlining that phrase within the passage. Now this will help give a key indicator of the surrounding phrases, helping contextualize the punctuation needed. Next, is context. You need to know what they're talking about. Are they using lists? Are they using parallelism? Are they using a dependent then coordinating independent clause junction? All of these things are important. And finally, you're going to choose the option that makes sense with the standard English conventions. For the most part, whatever feels right when you may say it in your head out loud is probably the correct answer, but make sure to go through all of these steps. Now, next time, we're going to go look at some of the grammar rules on the writing section.